Connie Mack is the most important baseball, the coolest, the most talented thing going on at, early August, late July like that. And just feeling that and being a part of it and seeing all the other teams from all over the nation, it's like, hey, this is special. And this is what we want our organization, Sandlot, this is what we want to be going to.
Welcome to Varsity Pulse Radio, your go-to source for all Connie Mack World Series. From in-depth interviews with top coaches and players to behind-the-scenes stories, we cover it all. Today, we have a special guest joining us, Dylan Taylor, the head coach and manager of the Tulsa Sandlot. Under his leadership, the team earned a spot at the prestigious Connie Mack World Series. Dylan's journey with the Sandlot has been one of determination and growth. We're excited to dive into his experience, strategy, and what it takes to compete at such a high level. Welcome to the show, Coach Taylor. Okay, Coach, can you tell us a little about yourself and why in the world are we talking right now?
So my name's Dylan Taylor. I coach baseball here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm 27 years old. I've been coaching for about last 4 years. I coached 11U, and then I coach 18U, and then I do lessons full-time. So I'm in baseball pretty much every day, and we got connected out there in Farmington, New Mexico at probably the most fun tournament I've ever been a part of, the Connie Mack World Series.
Awesome, and we're going to deep dive into that a little bit later, but first, you talk about you going from, 11U to 18U. How in the world did you make that transition?
So here in Oklahoma, while the high school kids are playing high school baseball during the spring, how Sandlot kind of organizes it is, you get so many paid coaches, and there's not enough for everyone to just have one team. So these guys that do this full time, Sandlot does a good job of setting us up and teaching us how to run our schedule to where during that springtime while the high schoolers are going, we have a youth team. So, my youth team plays that 11U team. They were 10U last year, so I'll take them on to 11U. They play February through March, April, and then get a little bit into May, and then right at the end of May, I kind of take over with this 18U team. I've been nominated the all-time 18U coach. So, every year our 17U teams come together. We had 2 17U teams this year. They come to a tryout. I kind of pick the guys who I think will handle the best, can swing the wood bats or can compete in the strike zone. And then from there, I kind of add in a couple extra pieces. But it's very enjoyable. It is very different going from 11U to 18U because all of a sudden you get those 18U kids and you're like, man, these are the best baseball players in the world. Because you're just used to an 11-year-old. But I got a good group of 10-year-olds, man. So I am able to push them really hard, harder than a lot of 10-year-olds. We won major state here in Oklahoma, which that's one of the bigger tournaments, and that's the highest level of USSSA. And I'm very proud of all those young kids.
So great question right there. So USSSA, for some of our listeners, it's just another organization to get these kids to play baseball and to be in organized tournaments and leagues and such. Now, Oklahoma is a little bit different in the sense of New Mexico. Well, our area in New Mexico, in the Farmington area, everything's AABC here. Everything's AABC. Now, you can actually go play, of course, Triple S, or you can go play, other tournaments, but it's all AABC. One year they tried to do Little League Little League, and it failed because, well, come on, you go from playing base, go take leads, or still bases like real baseball. I hate to say real baseball, but baseball. So it didn't work out very well. There was six or eight teams, and it was just kind of like we tried to make it fit, and it didn't work. So AABC is, that's what we do, from all the way down from Connie Mack to Mickey Mantle, and all the way down to Willie Mays and Rod Carew, which is the little kids, and it's a big thing. So in saying that, what is Oklahoma housed there? Do they have just multiple leagues? I mean, it's a lot bigger area population-wise, or do you have your pockets of teams that are playing just AABC, or do they have other teams doing just U-Trip and that kind of thing?
See, we really don't have AABC here. I think I talked to John Hartley out in Joplin, and they're going to be the first ones getting some AABC for these
Okay.
youth kids down here. But primarily, it's something we play called Oklahoma Kids. Is
Okay.
another one where age groups are a little different. So I don't put my teams in them very much, but here and there we'll play some of that. And then there's Perfect Game Youth.
Right.
But same kind of thing. We didn't play any Perfect Game or AABC or OK Kids last year. We played all USSSA.
Okay. Which makes perfect sense. So that kind of transitions to my next question. How in the world did you figure out and learn about the Connie Mack World Series? Not knowing AABC or any of that kind of stuff. I know Five Tool puts the tournament on, but how did you find out that, hey, if I win this, then I get to go to, well, here you go, Farmington, New Mexico?
Yeah, I'd say it started 2 years ago whenever I had my 17U team, and this was the only year I didn't coach 18U. I coached 17U, and it was my first year coaching summer. We had a really good summer. Next year, we came back around, and we were going to go play 18U, and one of the parents had kind of reached out and was like, hey, we should look at playing in that Connie Mack. And that was the year Enid went and won it all. So it's like, it was kind of buzzing around where they were 40-0, and it was a big deal. And so I kind of did a little research. We joined in the Dallas one, which is a very difficult regional to be in, and I think it was before there were even two bids. So we
Mm-hmm.
went down there. All of a sudden they're telling us we're playing on Tuesday, and we're used to Thursday through Sunday tournaments, and so we didn't have the best showing, and I'll take the blame on that as a coach, not really having the kids prepared for that. But we did good, competed well, came up a little short. So then the next year, we had another 18U team. Now this wasn't my 18U team. I had a different team this year. But another coach had brought his team from 17. His name was Gunnar Glad, and he's one of the owners of Sandlot. And he took his team to the Connie Mack last year. They won that first regional there in Joplin,
Yep.
and then they made it out to the Connie Mack 2 years ago and had an absolute great time. And I remember as soon as the parade was over, he called me and he was like, hey, going forward, I think we need to be a part of this every year. It's a big deal to qualify for a tournament, not just pay our way in. And we would love to send a team here every year. And they nominated me as being the coach, being a young guy who I don't have really a family, no kids, nothing tied me down. So I can do a little bit more of the travel on a short notice. And that's how I became kind of the 18U coach, and played in two qualifiers this year, or played in three qualifiers, and got the trip in our third qualifier. And after experiencing just that first day of getting in there and seeing the parade and meeting all the people and seeing what goes into everything and meeting you and everyone else out there, it was like, man, I am very excited to do this every year.
You know what's awesome about that is it's word of mouth, and we're trying to go beyond just word of mouth. We want the players to experience. And then, of course, the best advertisement is the word of mouth. But the reason why I started this podcast is exactly what you're just saying. It's this experience that no players have ever been a part of. And it's not just a tournament. It's way bigger than just a tournament. And, I harp that in the other podcasts and my other episodes. And I love it because it's more than just a tournament. Baseball, don't get me wrong, but it's a community thing. It's every year 80% of the community is looking forward to this 1 week of just amazing top-notch baseball. So a minute ago, you just mentioned that you went to three qualifiers. So you went to the Ozarks, you went
Yep.
to the Rocky Mountain, I'm assuming.
No, we didn't go to the Rocky Mountain. We were planning on it, but got kind of beat up in the Ozark, had a couple of
Okay.
injuries, and ended up pulling out of that Rocky Mountain one, which is something, you never want to do. But going that far and having the injuries we had, it just didn't make a ton of sense. And so then we went to the Dallas one.
Okay, the Dallas, which is no joke, man. There's a lot of good quality teams that go through that. I mean, think about the two teams that came out of there were the Doolins Dodgers and they made it to they made it to Friday. So if that tells you how big and how good qualifying those teams are, I understand, man. And then you go home and you play in the South Plains, and you guys ended up winning that. So before we get to that, Talk about your trip out there to the Ozarks. You say you battled some injuries, but I do know that you spent a little time against the championship team that ended up winning that in that championship game. You played him again in the World Series. Talk about the Acadiana Cajuns out there in that championship game.
Man, they were good dudes, and I really liked our chances from how the previous, I think it was 4 or 5 games had gone in that tournament. I think we won almost every game via run rule until we played the Julans Dodgers and beat them. I had a really good arm on the mound who didn't end up getting to make it out to Connie Mack because his college shut him down there at Oklahoma State. But his name's Cash Ferris. He was up to 95 that day against the Julans
Wow.
Dodgers, and really, I mean, obviously, Julans Dodgers were a good team
Mm-hmm.
and really went out there and had a very good performance and pushed us into that championship to where we played the Cajuns. Caleb Adams with the Cajuns, I've talked to him a lot as the head coach. He is a really good dude. And previously, the year before, in the Ozarks championship or the semifinals, it was the Cajuns versus Sandlot. The
Oh,
Cajuns were up a decent amount, and they kind of fell asleep a little bit. And Gunner and Sandlot Tulsa came back and beat them. And so whenever they jumped up on us early this year, it was very well communicated in the dugout that we are not going to let this team come back like they did last year. Don't fall asleep. Yeah. And man, like I said, in that Doolin's Dodgers game, my shortstop going to Kansas State had dove for a ball and pulled his oblique and dislocated his shoulder. So that was a tough loss for us going into that game. On top of I had my 3 best arms were all on vacation. So they threw very early in the tournament and didn't come back and throw at the very end, which that was scheduling. They told me early. I didn't understand being my first year to go through the complete Connie Mack gauntlet that like I should have squashed that bug at the very beginning. But so then going to Dallas and then getting ready for OU, it was a lot better understanding of like, hey, if we're up, I got to get these arms out and save them for the end of the tournament. I'll tell you this much: talent roster wise, Joplin was probably the second most talented roster I'd put out there. The most talented roster I had was in Dallas. We had a lot of really good players. I had Enid Majors were off, so I had 4 or 5 of their guys who helped us out a ton. And I'd say the least talented roster I had was there in that OU one. So, and the boys felt drugged down going into that OU one. They really did. They put it together, and it was a good weekend.
so you're talking about your players. You had 24 players on your roster, and I'm looking at your roster from this year's Connie Mack World Series, and you had 23 players signed and going somewhere.
Yeah.
So, first of all, if nobody understands what the Connie Mack World Series is, it's basically a precursor to the College World Series, really, because
Yeah.
this year there was 297 players and 209 were already signed. I mean, sorry, 279. It was 279, not 97. 279 and 209 were already signed. Now, that's 75% of the players are already signed to play in college. And a lot of those ones that haven't signed are just 16-year-olds or maybe
Yeah.
17-year-olds just going into their junior year. Man, what a testament. And that just makes this tournament a lot more prestigious moving forward, is knowing that you're going to be playing top-notch baseball from the first pull game, the first pitch thrown, all the way to your last game into the Connie Mack World Series. So moving into that, you have these 23 college players. The one that's not, he did graduate this year, and he may just chose not to go, move on or whatever the case may be. That's Brock. And talk about how you recruited your players. And Tulsa's a big area. You can recruit, anywhere in the area, of course. Did you try to stay pretty close, or did you pull from other coaches that you got word of mouth that, hey, these players need to come play with me and, get a chance to go play in the Connie Mack World Series?
Yeah. So the biggest recruiting thing that we kind of did was, and Gunnar Glad helps me out a lot on that recruiting side. There was a team out of Oklahoma City who was ran by some dads, and they had a really good team. And they decided they weren't going to play Team U and gave me 4 or 5 of their players. And kind of the same thing we talked about how the Connie Mack, how we found it out, just word of mouth. Really encourage the kids to recruit their buddies and talk to them. That way, I am not doing the calling and trying to steal anyone from any kind of coach, getting myself in any kind of trouble. And it's kind of word of mouth from their angle. Now, I also had 5 that had came over from that Sandlot 17U team as well, and all 5 of those were really good players that helped us out all summer long. And then from there, it's just kind of mix and match. It's kind of, once we won that qualifier, it was, who's the best in the state, with the moves that you can make on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I had 6 spots to move, and I'm going to get the 6 best players I could. And I felt like we did that too.
I mean, I don't know what your team looked like before, but man, you guys had a great showing this year at the Connie Mack World Series. So for our listeners, this is the second year that Tulsa Sandlot was in the World Series, and we mentioned that at the beginning of the show. Now, Gunnar Glass, good dude. Tell him hi for me, man. I loved interviewing him. Big old beard. I thought he was
Yep.
going to be. I wanted to go whitetail deer hunt with that guy just because he looks like that guy, Tell him hi. But, man, that speaks volumes of an organization that they say, hey, I went to this one tournament, just one tournament, and it changed basically your path as an organization to now we're going back to this tournament every year because of this. Now, when Coach Glad talked to you about this, tell me his reasons. I mean, yeah, he talked about the parade and how it's kind of a big deal, but this is before the first pitch was thrown. What was he saying to you, saying, hey, this is going to be a yearly thing now?
Man, we like how they take care of the guys. Travel ball is obviously, I'm sure you're on all the social medias. It gets a really bad rep with how much the money costs, and I agree. It's terrible how much all these teams charge for people, not just here in Tulsa, but you hear people charging $5,000 for a summer,
Yeah.
and whenever you get the opportunity like Connie Mack, where I was actually just recruiting a guy on the phone before we had started to talk, where I was able to tell him. He's like, man, I can't afford to go to New Mexico. And I was like, well, they give us money for flights, and I get to take care of you guys, if not all your flight, at least, more than half of your flight costs, as
Right.
well as you get host families, and they get fed, and they get their laundry done. They get driven around, and they make these boys feel special. They make them feel like, hey, this is the real deal. This is what
Right.
it's like to play at the next level. On top of, we love the idea of earning your way into something instead of having to pay to go to it. Who's got the most money, who's going to sit, and we like staying away from that. Whenever it's more of like, hey, these are, like you kind of mentioned, you said 279 and 209 of them were college kids. Perfect Game shuts all of their baseball playing down by that time for 18U. Five Tool has a little bit of stuff, but not a ton of stuff going on. You got the Cape still going on there in the college league, the draft league, but other than that, baseball is pretty much shut down. Connie Mack is the most important baseball, the coolest, the most talented thing going on at early August, late July like that, and just feeling that and being a part of it and seeing all the other teams from all over the nation, it's like, hey, this is special, and this is what we want our organization, Sandlot, this is what we want to be going to. These are the kind of events. I mean, then you also have the NBC there in Wichita, where it's the same kind of thing for the college league. Like, you got to win a bid, and you got to earn your way there, and it gets a little bit of grit going, where we're in the dugout. I've coached 18U ball where, it's just, hey, get your reps in, get ready for college. But all of a sudden, we're in a tight game against who knows in that OU regional, and it's like, hey, I'm gonna need you to put a bunt down. We're gonna manufacture some runs, and we're gonna try and win right here. And it takes a back seat to what 18U ball usually is, especially around here, which is play with your buddies, have a good time, and don't take things too serious. And that's not the kind of baseball I enjoy coaching. I like people who are showing up to the yard ready to go at someone, ready to. I mean, now I don't want to kill anyone, but ready to tear someone's head off on the other end of it.
So you guys moved to the tournament. I don't remember what your guys' pool play was, but I think you were 2-1 if I remember right.
We
And
didn't have a great pool play. We went 1-2.
1-2, okay. But then you squared off with the Texas 12 in the first round, and you guys ended up beating them 5-4. So the crazy thing about the first round this year, every single game of the first round except one was within 2 runs or less. So
Wow.
amazing competition right off the
Yeah.
bat. Oh, excuse me, there was 2 games that weren't. Everything else was just right there in that little realm. You guys win 5-4. Then you go up against the powerhouse. They always call them the powerhouse. They're the Yankees of the Connie Mack World Series, the Midland Redskins. Okay, you've never played against them. What was your guys' thought and your game plan going into that game against the Redskins? You guys ended up losing 11-3, but honestly, I remember I was calling that game on the radio. I don't remember it being an 11-3 game. I remember it being pretty close, but their way through that 11-3 victory.
Yeah, no, that was a tough game. We for sure last year Sandlot had played them Gunner's team. They beat them in that first round. They had some dudes on the mound. I saved a really good arm for them. And like you said, it was a close game. It was 4-3 going into the top of the fifth. So they got a couple in the sixth. And the big number that stands out to me is that error column where we had 6 errors on
Yeah.
top of the 6 errors. We also had 11 punch outs in the box. So you're never going to win games with those kind of numbers. And that, that's baseball. That's how it goes. But, then there at the end, I'm just kind of throwing some arms out there kind of to try and stop the bleeding. And the guy who I brought in did a really good job. But, when you go look at the box score, they had 4 earned runs. And we shot ourselves in the foot there. Strikeouts with runners left on base. We didn't play our best baseball, and that's not a team you don't want to play your best baseball against. And that was frustrating because I felt like we had the chance. I felt like we had the arm on the mound. I felt like we had the hitters in the box, other than all the strikeouts. And they took advantage of our errors, and we only had 3 walks, so we didn't pitch it all too bad. But baseball wasn't on our side. Defense, we played every single game on turf, and not to make any excuses, but that is something that we're going to attack. Yeah, we're going to attack that, this next summer coming up. I will make sure that even if we don't get games on grass, we're going to take more ground balls on grass because that Texas 12 game and that game, there's 2 games with, 12 errors. So winning that Texas 12 game with, like I said, 12 errors and then the same strikeouts, yeah, we had 11 again. So I have no clue how we won that game either. But the boys fought. They put everything for it. They hung in there and then, played a little 11U baseball and got a balk there at the end to walk that thing off. So
Crazy, right?
that
I
was
remember
cool.
that. Oh my God. You guys lost against the Redskins. Then you go into the losers bracket which is on Wednesday. You're now playing the last time you played this team, you played them in, like we mentioned earlier, the Ozarks Regional in the championship game. You talked about a little bit how your game plan is, but there's a little history outside of baseball with the Cajuns. Tell me about your bus ride coming from Albuquerque to Farmington, hanging out with the Cajuns in the same bus.
Man, it was awesome. It was kind of cool. And like I said, they're all really good people. They didn't run their mouths at all. It was a cordial bus ride where even the teams played some games while we rode the bus. It was cool. Caleb was Adams, really good dude. He called me after the Dallas Regional. Was like, man, you guys are going to be there. Don't stress. Like, we see the kind of team you are. We know what it takes to get there. You guys are going to be fine there in Oklahoma. But it was cool. It was cool for whenever we show up to that bus and they hopped on after us and we're just all sitting on there like, yeah, you guys thought you ended us, right? So it was a very cool experience and getting them in an elimination game, especially had things go, started to get our things going the right way there in that elimination game and did good. I got a whole bunch of junior college commits, so having our backs up against the wall wasn't too big of a scare by any means.
Right. Which is awesome because that elimination game is 2 things. Of course, you don't want to go home, but it's also,
Yeah.
I got to throw some of my best pitchers because I don't want to go home. So if you haven't used them the first round and you're hoping that you didn't use them the second round, and if you had a rough game, like you guys had a rough outing against the Redskins, you might burn some pitching. Well, now you win this game in the losers bracket and you got to move on. So now your pitching has to well, gosh, step up, because a double
Yeah.
elimination tournament is amazing, but you've got to have pitching to continue on your run through the tournament. So then you guys go up against the next day on Thursday against the North Texas Longhorns. Man, that was a freaking ball game. They just not would not let you go to the game. You guys came
Yep.
back. I think it was 7-2 going into the bottom. Nope, sorry, top of the seventh, if I remember right. And then you guys scored
Yep.
three in the top of the seventh to make it 7-5. And you guys had two runners on base. And then I think you flew out to left field. Wow, Sandlot, they cleaned up the defense. You guys cleaned up the defense on that game. And against the Cajuns, it wasn't nearly as many errors. However, you just couldn't get that, those extra runs right there. You just kind of run out of daylight. Tell me about that game and how that matchup was for you guys.
The Longhorns had a really good arm on the mound. I think it's Cord Rager was a really good arm, punched out 12 there. And yeah, Rager, he had a good day. We obviously, again, striking out 12 times can't happen. That was kind of, I had a lot of guys who were more power, and we struggled there. And our starting pitcher, he had flown in the night before from Houston, late night, and I tried to give that kid every excuse possible, and he wouldn't take any excuse. He wore it all. He had a bad start on the mound, probably one of the not one of his better starts. We also cleaned it up a little bit, still made 3 errors, and we did out hit him. And so once again, yeah, I mean, other than the walks that kind of beat us there, the two guys I brought in didn't give up any runs, um, and it it beat us there a little bit. Now, the fight there at the end was good to see. It was good to see these kids not lay down, try and put three up. I think we had runners on when, like you said, flew out to left field, um, but the end of such a great experience. Something that these kids will, you know Me, I played junior college. I played NAI. I've never played I've never coached or seen a game where I've been on the field in front of that many fans. So, not all these guys are going to go off to big Division Ones. They could go to NAI and go to a D2, and I think that game versus Texas 12, I think there were 6,500 out there. So that was a great experience, and something that I'd say maybe 4, 5, 6 of these guys might experience again, but for the 18 others, they'll never forget that.
So I was fortunate enough to play in the World Series in 1999. I played for the host team, of course. So I've been fortunate enough for one to live here. I moved away for 8 years because I went to college and did my thing, and then came back. And the stadium was a little bit smaller then, but man, you're the host team, so it's always packed, right? It's always packed when they play, and they organize the tournament so the host team gets to play. And I get it. I understand why they do it. And so that was the biggest crowd I ever played in. I went to D2 and played there, and of course, the biggest crowd I think I ever had was like 30 people, and it was the football team because they had nothing else better to do, that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
I played in New Mexico Highlands, had a fantastic ball club, but we even went to regionals, and even at regionals, nobody showed up. So
Yeah.
that experience, I understand. So what was your favorite experience during the whole Connie Mack World Series?
Man, I would say that Texas 12 game. That was fun. Being able to show the guys that, like we had kind of talked about earlier, we didn't play our best baseball. Too many strikeouts, too many errors, too many people left on bases, but we still grinded and got a tough win against a really good ball club. That Texas 12 team was absolutely loaded. When I saw that that's who we drew, it was a little bit like, man,
Dang it.
we're gonna have to go here. We're gonna and started a good arm, brought a good arm in relief. Both of those guys did their job. Even after for those two to pitch out of the 5 errors that we had, that was amazing. And then we weren't getting it done offensively. I think the last 3 innings we had runners on bases with 2 outs and just couldn't get that guy in for second and third. Just couldn't get that timely hit. And like I said, the guy at third, big body, as the left-handed pitcher started to go through his windup, he took 5 hard steps and he backed off, and it was a great feeling. It was awesome to kind of see that, like I said, We didn't play our best baseball, but we still grinded out a win. And if I can teach these kids anything, it's that you play the game hard, even when you're not having your best day.
Right.
And even when you play your game hard, baseball a lot of times will reward that. And
Yep.
it'll reward the grit and the grind of true baseball players rather than, what everyone likes to call the modern day baseball, where it's throw the ball hard as you can on the mound or hit the ball as far as you can. So that easily was my most fun experience. I remember staying up all night after that game, just being like, wow, that was exhilarating in front of that crowd. Then you had the parade right after, all in front of all those fans. It was awesome.
So you did the parade down the street. That was cool. Like half the town shows up. They take Friday
Yeah,
off and see these young men walking through. And for us as fans, we're seeing it as these kids are moving on to something bigger than just this tournament. So if I can get
yeah,
an autograph or I can get whatever, I can only imagine what's going through those kids' heads, these young men's heads as they're, wait, they want my autograph? Man, I've
yeah,
never written in cursive in my life. How in the world am I going to sign a baseball? So
yeah.
that part of it is amazing. So then you go over to the stadium. Tell me about the first time your team walked into Ricketts Park and what were your thoughts about Ricketts Park?
Man, it was awesome. It truly was. You step onto the surface and it's like, wow, this is tough to do, guys. This is tough to have a surface this beautiful, and you kind of see, the boys start to get a little bit more respect once they see Ricketts, and it's like, wow, people are putting in a lot of time and effort to make this place look that nice for you guys. And
Right.
it started from right there where, you see a lot of beautiful stadiums, right? Making a stadium beautiful, that's just money. And people have that money nowadays. Now, making the surface as beautiful as the surface was, that's when you kind of get to, get a little, or at least for me, get a little
Right.
tingle where it's like, wow, this is special, guys. I mean, I know a lot of places, like I said, got a beautiful stadium, but surface is, either turf or it's not well kept. And
Right.
so, as we wait out there to take our picture and, we're kind of looking around and we're the last team to take a picture, and you kind of just get to see everything, get to see the little gift shop, get to see where the bats are all set up, get to kind of talk to some of the people who are, the field
Hmm.
crew, and tell them thank you, and talk to some of the other teams, or get to meet the host families as well. It was, man, like I said, second to none.
So agreed. The amount of work they put in that field, we can go all day about that. And you play NAIA and Co. And you go to those fields and like some are like, gosh, my backyard's nicer than this, and I haven't mowed it in 3 weeks.
Oh,
And then you step on that field, it's agreed, totally different level. But my question is to you. So you're playing on that first round game at 5:15, 6,500 people. How do you feel the pressure is added to your team and yourself as a coach and the player of a big crowd like that? And do you feel like that gives them good experience moving on?
yeah, no, I do feel like it gave them great experience. And the message before the game was, if you guys ever want to go anywhere with your baseball career, you're going to have to play in front of people,
Mhm.
in front of this amount of people, and you're going to have to perform well. And this is a test today. Are you going to look up there, pucker up, and kind of get afraid of, making mistakes and play the game timid, and not really play the game hard? Or are you going to look up there and think, all right, going to be loud in the crowd. We're going to have to be loud with our communication, and we still got to play aggressive. Who cares if we make an error in front of all these people? You focus on yourself. You take care of yourself, and you play baseball the right way. It doesn't matter who's watching. And being able to expose the kids to that, I think was awesome. The coaches, the college coaches, like you said, they're all committed. All these kids have done this before. They've played in front of the most nerve-wracking thing is, a coach who's recruiting them. So
Right.
playing in front of a whole bunch of strangers or other good players, even because it was in the masses, it's still got to be able to play the game. And I think we did a good job, other than the errors. I feel like we did a good job managing our emotions and playing the right way. And it did help that I had one of the older teams, like you
Right.
said, the most all of them were seniors, or no, every single one of them were
I think so.
seniors.
I think
So
everyone was seniors. Yep.
yeah, and even Brock went off to play. He went
Okay.
to Crowder Community. Yeah, so it all of them were going to have to compete in front of a hostile environment, especially going out to a JUCO where, like you kind of said, the other team's football team is there because their coach is making them because they missed class. And, they're just letting all kind of things fly. And you got to be
Right.
able to take care of that. And you got to be able to handle that. And the boys did good for the most part because of that.
That's awesome, and I love it because if one of the things you're going to remember the most, maybe the field and maybe the foster families, and maybe, but when you go out there and you hit a double in a crowd that you've never been a part of, and they're cheering for you as much as they're cheering for the other team, and if you notice, there's really no favorites. You'll have your sections of the host families that this section's really loud, or we're all rooting for every team to do well.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yep.
cool being a part of that you're a home field team and you're not a home field team. Unless you're playing against a host team, that's a little bit different. You didn't experience that per se, but you guys probably
Well,
saw
we
it
got
going
to
in.
play that host team.
Oh, did you? Oh, you played
Yeah,
him
we
in
got them
pool
that.
play.
Yeah, we got them that first game, and that was a great experience as well. Getting to play them at Worley, would have loved to do it in Ricketts, of course, but first game of the tournament, and we had the host team. It was like, hey, this is where we want to start. I remember sitting in the selection meeting with all the coaches, and I looked at our assistant coach, and I nudged him, and I said, hey. This the draw we want right here. If we get this draw, we play host team first game, and we did. And he looked at me and he was like, "Wow, that's
How'd you
exactly
know?
what the doctor ordered." Yeah, how'd
Right.
I know? I mean, got
So
lucky.
Worley, it's funny. So you guys played at the complex, you played at Worley, and you played at Ricketts. Of course, all three different fields. They all play very different. The
Yeah,
field or the grass at complex is a lot slower than Worley, and then you go to Ricketts, and the grass is like turf but nicer. So
yeah.
each game is a little different experience. You guys were, I think, the second team or second game that played in Worley after all the new fence and redid the field. So you guys got to experience something that nobody's done yet because they just finished like literally the week before you guys started. So and just finished up and make sure everything was clean. In saying that, you guys are used to playing on turf. You go over to say the complex. Man, how are you guys thinking? Oh my gosh, we're in the desert now. We're behind a hill. This is like weird. We're from Oklahoma where you can see 700 miles, and we're playing in
Yep.
this little hilly terrain back here. And hey, we're playing on grass. How did you guys take that?
They handled it well, and I mean handled it well. They adjusted as best that they could. Like I said, it ate us up a little bit, and it was a little different. We had more errors in one game than I think we had all season long on turf, and that's just how baseball goes. And
Right.
if anything, I can teach the boys is like everything's an experience at 18U and getting ready for that college. And you're going to go out to some colleges who are going to have Kentucky bluegrass. You got to be ready. You travel up there to Nebraska. You got to be ready for, hey, that team's going to bunt a little bit more and the ball's not going to roll. So the catcher's got to hop on it. Pitcher's got to hop on it, make a play. Or, you go out down to Texas where they got turf everywhere, or you go somewhere else where it's just got Bermuda and it's super short and the ball skips almost like AstroTurf. And you got to be able to play on different surfaces. I mean, most all of those big D1, Big 12 teams almost all play on turf. And then you go to the College World Series and you play on a natural surface there in Nebraska. And that was kind of the main message is if you guys ever want to go anywhere with your career, take a look. There's different field types scattered throughout everywhere. This is just an experience on learning how to handle those things. And you know, like I said, defense didn't do what the defense had done all summer. And if there's anything we could have done from that, it's at least learned and been more adjustable going forward as they move into their college careers.
Right, which makes perfect sense, and that's just the adjustments you have to make as an athlete. I mean, no matter what, you're going to make adjustments. No matter if you're playing basketball and playing a different, all the courts are the same, but man, they play different because you're different to make adjustments for. How did you guys support each other through the up and downs? I mean, you put a team together that a lot of them didn't know each other. They may have played against each other. So how do you mesh that team together in a short amount of time and then be able to play as a team going throughout your summer?
Just find common goals. We all have the same goal, which was first and foremost to get to Connie Mack, and the second one was to win it, and then the third one is to have a successful college career. And as you start to get everyone pulling on the same rope and to understand that, hey, we all want the same thing out of this, whether I'm just a PO, whether I get to play the position every game, whether I'm one of the guys who kind of had to take my turn and rotate on the bench. And they all did a really good job of buying in and understanding that it's difficult for me, honestly. And I don't want any pity by any means, but it is tough whenever you got, 14 guys who are going off to play college baseball, and I got to put five of them on the bench. And
Right.
those five have never sat on the bench in their whole life. So, I tried to do the best I could to where before they even looked at the lineup, I just walked over to them, looked them in the eye, shook their hand, and let them know, hey, you're going to be down this game. And I think just that open communication really helped them understand that, like, hey, he's not trying to hide. He's going to do it wide open. And it's kind of a rotate type
Mm-hmm.
thing where everyone gets their time on the bench. And then once you get late in tournaments and those win first situations, the guys who are performing get to be on the field, and the ones who weren't were the guys who were watching. And that's just how it goes sometime. Or, you get to play matchups better, left versus right, speed versus no speed, or power versus speed, those kind of things. So, like I said, they all kind of came together and understood the common goal, and realized that what we're going for is bigger than being selfish and thinking about only your goals. And that was kind of the message the whole time was, especially after we lost that first game and got put into elimination. It's, hey, you guys' backs are against the wall. If we're not going to come out and play hard tomorrow, how about we just call and tell them no thanks?
Right.
And they all answered that. And I got into the guys pretty loud, and after that loss against Midland, and I'm looking around as I'm getting into them, and choice words left and right, and they're all shaking their heads. They're all eye contact. They're all looking at me. They're all receptive to my words. And I knew right then and there that, like, hey, this next one's going to be no problem. And
Right.
even after the game, I get a phone call from four of our guys who are like, hey, can we go to Empire and hit? Will you meet up with us there and throw batting practice? And, after we lose to Midland, we pretty much have a team practice there.
Right.
So it was, I mean, I'm very appreciative for how those boys answered after we lost that first game.
Most times, you as a player, you go home with mom and dad. You go home, or you drive home and you go to your house. Each one of these kids are staying with a foster family. Tell me about how they. First of all, it's got to be weird, man. It's got to be weird to go into a town, you don't know a soul. You're going to be playing a baseball tournament, but yet you're going to be staying at some random people's houses. Tell me about how your team kind of handled that, and did they like it or did they not like it?
No, I mean, they liked it. Yeah, the idea is very difficult to get over. A lot of parents reached out to me prior to, like, hey, how are you going to pair the kids up? And just a ton of questions. But, once you understand that, Connie Mack has done a lot of research into who they're letting these
Mm-hmm.
people stay with, people start to understand that, like, this is special. The town loves this, and they're going to take care of the boys. And as soon as, say something bad were to happen, I know Connie Mack would shut it down almost
Yeah.
immediately and wouldn't let it happen. So, you place a lot of trust in the people of the town, and Connie Mack and AABC itself. And they do a really good job and put out a lot of information. And I got to talk to, the coordinator of all of it, and then the coordinator of my team, and of the host families, and kind of ensure our families that, hey, everyone's got their background check, and everyone checks out just fine, or else they wouldn't be allowed to host your kids. And on top of it, man, they're 18. They do this in college summer ball. So if you do have some sort of problem with this, your son's not going to go play college summer ball. And
Right.
that's something you want to be able to do too. And, especially it's a great idea that they do it where they make you stay with a pair. That way you do feel a little bit more like you have a friend in there. But it was great. Everyone loved it.
Good,
Yeah.
good. I've never experienced on the player side. I've done it on, of course, being the host family. And, man, I'll tell you what, it's just as much a lasting impression for the host family as it is for the young men coming in. And I'll tell you what, you develop relationships that you never thought you'd develop. I know, well, people that I went to high school with and their parents, they kept Manny Ramirez. And Manny Ramirez invited them to
Awesome.
mini games to go play or watch him in, when he's playing for the Red Sox and say, hey, and he would call Mom and Dad, will you come out here and come watch me? Well, yeah, I'll come watch you. And just many examples of how foster families are just as impacted as the young men coming in and playing in the tournament. So so moving on. Are there any players or teams you faced at the Connie Mack World Series that have left a lasting impression on you?
The North Texas Longhorns team, they were really good dudes, and I got to talk to Coach Bodie a lot. And Sandlot actually has a bid down to go play in Perfect Game in Jupiter in this October, and I'm getting to take a couple of their guys from their team that I kept connections with, and getting to take them down to Jupiter and play in one of the premier league tournaments that Perfect Game puts on. So that was awesome. And then, like I said, I had talked to Caleb Adams a lot from the Cajuns, and we still have communication back and forth. And he was even trying to help me get a job with who he works for at one point in time. So, those two guys were really good. And, one of them beat us once, and the other one beat us there at the end. And they were all really respectful people. And I didn't have any problems with any coaches or any teams we played. It was a blast, man.
So going back to what you said earlier, this tournament is earned. You can't just buy your way in. I feel like that provides and gives an avenue for an environment and an experience that these kids work their tail off to earn this spot. So that means they're probably not the rough kids, if you may, the kids that you probably wouldn't have on your team, but also the coaches. It kind of thins everybody else out and puts these respectful young men and coaches on these teams. Sure, you'll have the occasional bad apple on there, but when I'm saying occasional, I can't think over the last 10 years that there's been a player that you're like, wow, you shouldn't act that way. It's always, every single year, these kids respect the game, they respect the teams that they're playing against, and they go in there and they earn it. And I think that's a big part of it is they're earning their way in there and not just provided a tournament.
Yeah, no, I think it is amazing just because, you get there to Connie Mack, and, they set all the rules about how the kids should act, and it's really easy to uphold them whenever your whole summer has been the idea of getting here. It's like, well,
Right,
we're here. It's not time to mess around. It's not time to go do X, Y, and Z. We're here for baseball. We're
right.
going to Durango and getting to the mountains is awesome, but it's not. We came all this way to win a tournament,
Hmm.
not see what Farmington looks like.
Right.
That's what the parade was for. That's what meeting the host families is for. Once all that goes and those games start, it's time to go at it.
Time to go at it. Absolutely. Perfect segue into this last question. What are your goals moving forward after competing at this level at the Connie Mack World Series, and both for yourself and Tulsa Sandlot?
And the goal is, obviously to get back, but not just get back, but win it. And I think the more we get into going further in it, I mean, we might have gotten to the same spot that they got to last year, but Gunnar had given me a ton of good advice about pool play, be smart with your pitching, don't waste any guys, don't burn anyone, take some guys who have their arms fresh and can throw a lot during pool play, maybe especially like two ways who are more position heavy, that don't really plan on pitching all too much in
Hmm.
college, and not abuse them by any means, but
No.
use them during pool play, and then save all your really good arms for bracket play. And that's what we did. Our pitching staff was great. We just didn't play enough defense behind them. But no, 100% the goal for my team, Dylan Taylor and Tulsa Sandlot, is to win this thing. Not just go back, but to build a team that is gonna win and go to that Joplin tournament the first week, win that tournament, and then from there find grass fields and practice once a week, and then scrimmage against our Sandlot College team to get us ready. And we swing wood every single game too to kind of keep us prepared, because it is a really big difference versus swinging a 33-ounce bomb bat and a 33 voodoo from DeMarini, just because BPI and how the bats are weighted differently, even though they're the same ounces. It's a it's a big thing that the guys have to adjust to it. And I do blame that for how many strikeouts we had. But this summer, I'm going to make sure, and going into it, the guys who I've already taken on my team, anytime they're doing lessons, I'm asking them to make sure you only swing wood. Let's really get prepared for that going forward.
We are going to do a little segment that I've been wanting to do, and it's called Varsity or JV. Varsity is what you agree with and what we should keep doing. JV is like, no, I don't agree with. Let's move on from it. You made the
Yeah.
perfect ending. Okay, varsity or JV, wood bats should be used all the time in all leagues. Maybe 18 up. We'll go with 18 up.
Oh, like even college? Yeah, no, I think varsity, man. I think swinging wood bats tough, and I like the game to be tougher. But I also say JV in the point where pitching is so easy and hitting is so hard that getting a little advantage of those hitters, I don't think is a bad thing. Especially as a hitter myself, who needed all the help I could get.
I get it. All right. I can't argue with any of that, honestly. I can't argue with any of that. Okay, so varsity or JV, do you agree with pitch counts?
Yeah, no, pitch count's got to be a thing. 100% varsity. There are too many guys, especially me. Whenever I was younger, coaching my first 17U team, having to juggle everything, and you got to keep those pitch counts because if you don't have rules on them, people are gonna tear up these young kids, abuse them. Kind of like what I said earlier. Those pitch counts are important. 100% varsity there.
Okay, last one. Varsity or JV, do you think teams should play more league games during the summer instead of tournaments?
No, just because that was one of the biggest reasons we don't stay local there in Oklahoma and play, just because nothing against any of the other Oklahoma teams, but I just had a really good team, and I think if we would have consistently stayed around and played some of these local teams, and there were very good local teams around here that did do that. I don't want to have a 40-0 record. Failing is part of this game, and if I can't get kids to understand how to handle failure and move on from it and adjust and overcome that kind of stuff, then what kind of young men are we raising? Not even to
Right.
throw baseball out of the window. It's these boys, depending on how good you are, you have to expose them to some sort of failure, or else they're not even going to be good fathers. They're
Right.
not going to be good grown men, much less baseball. So no, I like the traveling around. I like pushing yourself against the top competition. I just wish it was a little bit cheaper. As
Man,
do
if only,
everybody, I'm
right?
sure.
Yeah. I think everybody
Yeah.
wishes it was a little bit cheaper, but it's a business
Yep.
and it's become a
Yep.
huge business.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you, Dylan. That was a fantastic podcast. I appreciate you taking the time.
No, I appreciate you, man. This was a blast. Thanks for letting me hop on.
Absolutely, and it's fun. And man, spread the word. We're hoping to get a lot more people out there wanting to come to the Connie Mack World Series. So we're hoping
Nice. Yeah,
so.
no,
And
I'll spread the word for sure, man. I really enjoyed going out there, and I like beating teams that are good. So we'll always be out there.